Rodney James Alcala is a convicted rapist and serial killer. He was sentenced to death in California in 2010 for 5 murders committed in that state between 1977 and 1979. In 2013, he received an additional sentence of 25 years to life after pleading guilty to 2 homicides committed in New York in 1971 and 1977. His true victim count remains unknown, and could be much higher. One police detective called Alcala a killing machine, and others have compared him with Ted Bundy. A homicide investigator familiar with the evidence speculates that he could have murdered as many as 50 women, while other estimates have run as high as 130. Prosecutors say that Alcala toyed with his victims, strangling them until they lost consciousness, then waiting until they revived, sometimes repeating this process several times before finally killing them. Police discovered a collection of more than 1,000 photographs taken by Alcala, mostly of women and teenage boys, many in sexually explicit poses. They speculate that some of his photographic subjects could be additional victims. In 2016, he was charged with a 1977 murder of a woman identified as one of his photo subjects. He is sometimes called the dating game killer because of his 1978 appearance on the television show The Dating Game in the midst of his murder spree. Early life and education. Alcala was born Rodrigo Jacques Alcala Becer in San Antonio, Texas, to Raul Alcala Becer and Ana Maria Gutierrez. He joined the U.S. Army in 1960, at age 17, where he served as a clerk. In 1964, after what was described as a nervous breakdown, during which he went AWOL and hitchhiked from Fort Bragg to his mother's house, he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. After leaving the Army, Alcala graduated from the UCLA School of Fine Arts and later studied film under Roman Polanski at New York University. Early criminal history. Alcala committed his first known crime in 1968. A motorist in Los Angeles called police after watching him lure an 8-year-old girl named Taylai Shapiro. The FBI added Alcala to its list of 10 most wanted fugitives in early 1971. In 1977, after Alcala's second release from prison, his Los Angeles parole officer took the unusual step of permitting a repeat offender and known flight risk to travel to New York City. NYPD cold case investigators now believe that a week after arriving in Manhattan, Alcala killed Ellen Jane Hoover, 23, daughter of the owner of Sierro's, a popular Hollywood nightclub and goddaughter of Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. In 1978, Alcala worked for a short time at the Los Angeles Times as a typesetter, and was interviewed by members of the Hillside Strangler Task Force as part of their investigation of known sex offenders. Although Alcala was ruled out as the Hillside Strangler, he was arrested and served a brief sentence for marijuana possession. During this period, Alcala convinced hundreds of young men and women that he was a professional fashion photographer, and photographed them for his portfolio. A Times coworker later recalled that Alcala shared his photos with workmates. "I thought it was weird, but I was young. I didn't know anything," she said. When I asked why he took the photos, he said their moms asked him to. "I remember the girls were naked." Quote. Dating game appearance. In 1978, despite his status as a convicted rapist and registered sex offender, host Jim Lang introduced him as a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the darkroom at the age of 13. Fully developed. Between takes you might find him skydiving or motorcycling. Quote. Actor Jed Mills, who competed against Alcala as Bachelor Number 2, later described him as a very strange guy with bizarre opinions. Samso murder and first two trials. Robin Samso, a 12-year-old girl from Huntington Beach, disappeared somewhere between the beach and her ballet class on June 20, 1979. Her decomposing body was found 12 days later in the Los Angeles foothills. Alcala was arrested in late 1979 and held without bail. In 1980 he was tried, convicted, and sentenced to death for Samso's murder. But the verdict was overturned by the California Supreme Court because jurors had been improperly informed of his prior sex crimes. Additional victims. While preparing their third prosecution in 2003, Orange County investigators learned that Alcala's DNA sampled under a new state law. During his incarceration between the second and third trials, Alcala wrote and self-published a book, You, the Jury, in which he claimed innocence in the Samso case and suggested a different suspect. He also filed 2 lawsuits against the California penal system for a slip-and-fall incident and for refusing to provide him a low-fat diet. Third joint trial. In 2003, prosecutors entered a motion to join the Samso charges with those of the 4 newly discovered victims. Alcala's attorneys contested it, as one of them explained. If you re a juror and you hear one murder case, you may be able to have reasonable doubt, but it's very hard to say you have reasonable doubt on all 5, especially when 4 of the 5 aren't alleged by eyewitnesses but are proven by DNA matches. And in February 2010, Alcala stood trial on the 5 joint charges. For the third trial, Alcala elected to act as his own attorney. Alcala made no significant attempt to dispute the 4 added charges, other than to assert that he could not remember killing any of the women. Unidentified photographs. In March 2010, the Huntington Beach and New York City Police Departments released 120 of Alcala's photographs and sought the public's help in identifying them, in the hope of determining if any of the women and children he photographed were additional victims. As of September 2016, 110 of the original photos remain posted online, and police continue to solicit the public's help with further identifications. Additional associations, charges, and convictions. New York State. After his 2010 conviction, New York authorities announced that they would no longer pursue Alcala because of his status as a convict awaiting execution. Washington State. In 2010, Seattle police named Alcala as a person of interest in the unsolved murders of Antoinette Whitaker, 13, in July 1977, and Joyce Gaunt, 17, in February 1978. Alcala rented the Seattle area storage locker, in which investigators later found jewelry belonging to 2 of his California victims. In 1979. San Francisco. In March 2011, investigators in Marin County, California, north of San Francisco, announced that they were confident that Alcala was responsible for the 1977 murder of 19-year-old Pamela Jean Lamson, who disappeared after making a trip to Fisherman's Wharf to meet a man who had offered to photograph her. Her battered, naked body was subsequently found in Marin County near a hiking trail, with no fingerprints or usable DNA. Charges are unlikely to be filed, but police claimed that there is sufficient evidence to convince them that Alcala committed the crime. Wyoming. In September 2016, Alcala was charged with the murder of 28-year-old Christine Routh Thornton, who disappeared in 1977. In 2013, a relative recognized her as the subject of one of Alcala's photos made public by Huntington Beach PD and NYPD. Her body was found in Sweetwater County, Wyoming. In 1982, but was not identified until 2015 when DNA supplied by Thornton's relatives matched tissue samples from her remains. Timeline.